as usual, big right now because of the lake access. Lake access every year, April, May, June, July are my big phone calls. Okay. Lakefront is one thing. Lake access, let me tell you, this is like 25 years ago story, but Bud Chamberlain had a listing in Royal Oak and with lake access. Now, boy, I have never seen a lake in Royal Oak. So I investigated. Sure, if you're an Oakland County resident, here's all the Oakland County parks you have lake access on. Okay, that's lake access. That's legally speaking lake access. Okay, so lake access is a loose term. If it says lake access, there are three things you need to know. Number one, where is it? Okay. Number two, what kind is it? Is it body and boat? Dock? What kind of access is it? Because if you're off water and you have lake access, that means body only, unless the agreement says to the contrary. So the agreement has to say if it's going to be more than just body. And then thirdly, how much is it going to cost you? What do you have to do to get it? How much is it going to cost you? It is amazing in the number of lake access, there are common lots where you have a lot for the subdivision, where the issues of what does it take to become a member, so to speak. There's a subdivision in Bloomfield where the spot is held for 60 days after the purchaser buys. If the purchaser does not exercise the right and pay the $2,000 transfer fee, they go to they're gone. They take the first person off the waiting list because in Bloomfield and West Bloomfield, they have 35 feet of frontage per user requirement. So you have to have you're limited on the number of people who can access through that lot. And if you have 30 opens and you have 90 lots, 30 people have it, and if someone doesn't exercise the right and pay the $2,000 transfer fee, they go to the first person on the waiting list, and you want to now apply, you go to the back of the line. You don't have a spot reserved for you past 60 days. The other thing, this I'm getting a little more of an attorney side, but what kind of insurance does that common lot area have? Erie Drive, if you're familiar with it, across from Orchard Lake St. Mary's, they have a common area. Well, there was a party there, and the kid jumped off the wrong side of the dock into the rocks and became a paraplegic. Every person was sued that had access or ownership in that particular outlet. Long story short, after 2 years, they finally, all of the insurance companies kicked in, homeowners insurance companies kicked in some money so that could go away. But you couldn't sell anything on Erie Drive, okay, for a long time because it was subject to the litigation that was going on. And so the homeowners association or whatever association it is that is operating or owns that lot needs to make sure they have insurance to protect the members of the subdivision. I've looked at some and it's like, whew, you need a corporation, first of all, to limit your liability. And if you haven't done that, then you need to make sure you have plenty of insurance. But that could be a noose around your neck for a long time in those situations. I have a question that because this is every year, I have at least a dozen questions that come up with what do we have and what are we getting or et cetera. And one of the guys said, well, I was told that I could come through the underneath the road in the viaduct underneath. I can get through, and but I can only get a canoe through or a kayak. Well, you're connected that way, but that doesn't give you riparian rights to go over to their lake, which is bigger than your lake on this side, with a boat and put it in. So each one needs to be evaluated on its facts. Just don't assume that you know what lake access means. it has to be, as I said, if it's off water, lake access, it's body only, unless it says otherwise. And one of the situations I also saw that was, I ended up meeting with all the people on it as a courtesy item. There was a 10-foot easement with a right to put in a dock. Okay, rented to 4 people off site. How wide, you ever seen a dock with two boats on each side? A boat on each side? That's far more than 10 feet. Okay, which side got the dock, and which side didn't, okay? And if you put it right through the middle, none of them could. So anyhow, they had to go back and negotiate and pay money to get a larger easement in order to have the dock for those 4 owners that they actually could use. They ended up having to have a 22-foot easement so that they could put a boat on each side of the dock that was put in. So you got to look at the facts, the situation, and if you're not sitting on the water, lakefront, you need to know what your rights are and what it's going to cost you to have those. Any questions there? Because this is every time this is a hot issue when it comes. People are mad.
How do you find out what your rights are? Because a lot of times the sellers don't know, or when you're representing a buyer.
Well, if you're representing the buyer, typically it's going to be subject to satisfactory evidence of lake access or satisfactory lake access or whatever, something to that effect. Now that's a toughie in this world where you want your offer to be accepted, but you also don't want it to be accepted where your people think they're getting something and they're not. So as a seller, if you're the lister, it probably is, if they have lake access, before you formally list it, you should probably find out what it is, where it is there an agreement or whatever, and put it in the remarks that lake access information available from lister or something to that effect.
How do you get that though? I mean, okay, so
If they're paying money to somebody, which is typically on lake access, who are they paying it to and what rights? You start questioning them, and then probably who's the treasurer.
oh, okay.
Yeah, from Steer Lake, you go to.
Yeah. But I mean, you said something, so the condos on the Andersonville, you can park it on Lester.
Yep.
Depending on the boat, you can get through to Greens Lake.
Yep.
Because Greens Lake is it a public lake?
Yeah, well, virtually all lakes are public lakes, quote unquote, have riparian rights. The question is, can you get to them?
Okay.
It's like Union Lake, we'll say, by way of example. You know, the boat launch is there for the public access. The way they control the number of people is by the number of parking spots. There was a big fear, what was it now? 2007, I think, is when they cut out 10 of the parking spots to limit the number of accesses. What time do we have to get here? We have to get here at 6 a.m. to get access? Yeah. Okay. It's, but anyway, so your accesses are going to be defined by agreement.
Okay.
That's the big point to it. Next was